Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another week of Tim's News Explosion. During these weekly news blasts, I untwist the established news narrative of the past week in a fast-paced 30-minute digest every Monday evening on the Wilms Front channel. It is Monday, the 14th of June, 2021. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne on this Queen's Birthday public holiday, where this week, we are currently in what is termed lockdown light, the third week overall of Melbourne's fourth COVID pandemic lockdown. The Queen's Birthday's Australian honours were revealed today. Our honours system is not immune from the hyperpartisanship of the modern era, with controversy every year over the honours going to ex-politicians and media personalities rather than real community heroes. Twitter was aghast overnight that Tony Abbott's former chief of staff and current Sky News host and journalist Peter Credlin was awarded an Officer of the Order of Australia, which is an AO. It's the second highest honour. The highest is a Companion of the Order of Australia, which is AC. But to balance out the political awards for this year, former Victorian Police Commissioner Christine Nixon also received a Officer of the Order of Australia AO honour. She was the commissioner in the 2000s under the Braxton Brumby Labor governments that oversaw the beginning of the decline of Victoria Police, which we've seen out in force over the past year here in Melbourne and Victoria. Now, the Victorian health authorities, they told us this lockdown was needed, otherwise the Kappa and Delta strains of that have been a part of this latest COVID outbreak would lead to people dying. But 0 Victorians have died during the most recent outbreaks. The Delta outbreak seems to be, which is apparently this is the even more infectious Indian strain than the Kappa one. That seems to have dissipated out, and so our authorities tell us they're still getting on top of the trunks and branches of the Kappa outbreak. So 0 Victorians have died from this latest COVID outbreaks, but people are still dying around Victoria, including 2 who died in the wild storms and floods this past week. Thousands of Victorians in the state's east, on the outer skirts of Metro Melbourne and in regional eastern Victoria are also without power. Many other Australians and, well, humans all around the world are dying of non-COVID illnesses and ailments. The most noted, well, the ones that are reported in the news of these non-COVID deaths are those of celebrities and prominent politicians. It broke on Saturday morning that Perth ex-radio shock jock Howard Sattler had died at the age of 76. I'm not sure that many of you watching this program now would know who Howard Sattler is, but he was one of the original controversial shock jocks who was attacked by the ABC here. He was described as the king of talk back here. He's probably going to be remembered, well, for people of my generation, for how he was eventually sacked from 6PR, and it was for this exchange with Saint Julia Gillard, the Prime Minister of the time in 2013, where if you said anything colourful about her, you're a misogynist.
Myths, rumours, snide jokes and innuendos. You've been the butt of them many times.
Well, I think that's probably right. We've certainly seen that this week.
Can I test a few out?
In what way?
Tim's gay.
Well,
No, that's not me saying it, that's a myth.
well, that's absurd.
Yeah, but you hear it. He must be gay, he's a hairdresser.
Oh, well, isn't that...
You've heard it.
But,
It's not me saying it, it's what people say.
well, I mean, Howard, I don't know whether every silly thing that gets said is going to be repeated to me now.
No.
But you know, to all the hairdressers out there,
Yeah,
including the men who are listening, I don't think in life one can actually look at a whole profession full of different human beings and say, gee, we know something about every one of those human beings. I mean, it's absurd, isn't it?
You can confirm that he's not.
Oh, Howard, don't be ridiculous, of
No, but
course
in
not.
a heterosexual relationship, that's all I'm asking.
Well, Howard, you and I have just talked about that, so now that is bordering. Howard, just let's.
I wanted to get rid of it.
Let me just bring you back to earth.
I'm not saying it.
Right, well, let me just bring you back to earth. You and I have just talked about me and Tim living at the lodge.
Yep.
We live there together as a couple. You know that. Yes, on the internet, you know, there are lots of, you know, what I've referred to in the past as nut jobs, and I'm happy to use the expression again.
Good.
People who peddle and circulate vile and offensive things.
Awful things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, so that was how his career ended. He was sacked from 6BR because, it was a weird question that he asked Julia Gillard. Maybe a few days in the sin bin or suspension was justified, but him being sacked was just a way too overreaction. But as Australian Protectionist Party said in a comment that I put on the screen, he was a huge figure in WA, always pretty favourable to patriots. And this 6BR tribute says that in 1991 he led a 30,000 person strong protest on the steps of WA's parliament, demanding tougher penalties for juvenile criminal offenders. He was always called racist for his tough on crime, I wouldn't say policies, but mantra on air, because he often named that a lot of these offenders were Aboriginal. So it has one of his former producer here, Carla Shearman, said he uncovered so many stories, he broke so many major news occurrences. He was just one of those people that thought if something's happening that's not right, or if people are being affected by something, I need to stand up for the average person. He did in 2018 get inducted into the Australian Media Hall of Fame in 2018. And going down here, it's if we go further down here, he had a long-suffering illness, a rare neurological disorder known as progressive supranuclear palsy for 10 years. So Vale Howard Sattler there, another recent Australian death, which we are not veiling, is that of convicted criminal, bankrupt businessman and disqualified Dr. Geoffrey Edelsten. Now, he was known, well, for people of my generation as, well, being married to a woman over 40 years, his junior, Bryn Edelsten, or Bryn Gordon, as she was known. So it says here he was jailed in 1990 for paying a hitman to assault a former patient. And back around, I think it was broadcast around 2009, that because the local TV networks here were wanting to make their own reality fly on the wall series, like in the style of the Osbournes and all the reality shows that were a rage at the time. So this was they did a reality series about the life of his then wife Bryn.
Bryn's husband stormed off to the US. Now he's back.
He invited me on a date.
What will he say to win her heart again?
We had a storm in Memphis, 9 buildings blown down.
It's nice.
Good.
Yeah.
New Bryn, tonight 7:30 on 7.
Now, Bryn and Geoffrey divorced in 2014. Then he married an even younger model, Gabby Greco, in 2015. He was reported to have fathered a love child in the 80s with Isabel Beard, who was a former patient of the deregistered doctor. He was also one of the few private owners of an AFL football club, the Sydney Swans, even though he was a Carlton supporter as well. So he was described in his death as a controversial businessman. You can say that again. His death is not being treated as suspicious. It just says that he died at the age of 78 there. So those are the two high-profile non-COVID related deaths in Australia. Now, going on to the Victorian political update, because as I said, we are in lockdown light at the moment. So you're allowed to leave your house now for any reason in Metro Melbourne, but you have to wear a face mask whenever you leave your home. You're not allowed private visitors to your home, and there's a 25-kilometre radius travel limit around your home. And now the keeping of the mandatory masks outdoors rule is the one that's copped the most scoffing and ridicule. They backflipped on their original plan that Melburnians wouldn't have to wear them outdoors. Now, despite the Victorian government's love of face masks, some Victorian government ministers don't even wear them. Because one of the Victorian government ministers, the disabilities, carers and ageing minister, Luke Donaldson, was forced to apologise after being spotted on video without a mask chatting to staff in an office. So there he is there. So it's a case of do as I say, not as I do. Silly Victorians. The COVID restrictions are only enforced on the poor peasants of Victoria there. So even though there was only two local cases today, and they weren't out in the community infectious, so we still don't know whether restrictions will be further eased this week. Meanwhile, the mental health of Victorians continues to suffer, particularly of the young. I think here we go here. Sorry, my computer's overloading with all the stories that I'm sharing. Attempted suicide rates amongst Victorian teenagers soar by 184% in the past 6 months.
An Australian Bureau of Statistics survey of households.
Stupid autoplay. A disturbing pattern of behaviour is emerging in Victorian teens during the pandemic, sparking concerns of a mental health crisis. Yeah, no shit. I know that Peter Credlin has repeatedly mentioned on her show one of her friends. Her son committed suicide during the first lockdown. When I interviewed political posting mama Marika Rancy last year, she mentioned that one of her child's friends had committed suicide, which is just absolutely tragic. But this is the problem with this singular COVID focus, not just putting people's lives on hold, but destroying people's lives, messing up their life plans, separating family and friends. It is abhorrent still. Now, if you thought that the news couldn't get any worse, it does, because Dan Andrews has announced that he is going to be coming back to work on June 28th, which is in 2 weeks. This is the front of the Sunday Herald Sun. That was him getting the Pfizer vaccine. And also at the top here is Weimar's war on the sniffles, because the testing commander, Jerome Weimer, who's not a health professional, said call people out who have the sniffles to get a COVID test. That's a bit Nazi of Weimer, I thought there. Now, obviously, as I mentioned last week, all the various conspiracy theories and rumors about Dan's stairfall on March the 9th resurfaced, including the Victorian opposition. Their Shadow Treasury spokesperson Louise Staley had a series of questions she wanted answered, and Dan's wife Catherine Andrews, she tweeted out a weird photo of Dan getting his hair cut with his eyes blocked. But we finally had a video from Dan where he said he was going to be returning to work, and he was almost healed. Now, a lot of the conspiracy theorists thought that it might be a deep fake. So the real Rukshan, he decided to do a facial and vocal recognition or analysis. It is actually not a scientific analysis. Real Rukshan simply made this video for the lols. So,
hi everyone, I just want to provide you with an update. This week I've had scans and a big meeting with all of my medical team at the Alfred. Good news is the vertebrae in my back's almost fully healed. The brace has come off. That's the brace I've worn for 18 hours a day for the last 3 months. But the ribs are not fully healed. They'll take a while. And the doctors tell me these next few weeks will be quite a painful adjustment to getting used to not having that brace on. Now, I want to thank quite a few people for their love and support and for their care. To Kath and the kids, of course, they're everything to me, and they've been there every step of the way, and I'm so grateful to them. I love them so much. In terms of my medical team, AMBOs, doctors registering those symptoms, it's really important to go and get tested. That's how we pull this thing up. That is a very impressive test. Strangers, tens of thousands of them who've sent me cards and notes and letters. Your kindness and your concern is in some ways the best medicine, and I can't thank you enough. Now, in terms of when I'll be back in the next couple of weeks, very soon, and I'm ready to go. Once I'm fully fit and healthy, I'll be back. Being Premier of this state's a great honour, and I look forward to continuing working hard every day, getting things done, and I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon.
Now, my own personal opinion is that based on that video of Dan with the huge ears, that is definitely him. He's obviously in that he's much more pale in the video that he posted recently compared to when he was behind the purple wall of doom, when he had basically a tomato face from doing all those press conferences and yelling at all of us because the outbreaks are still our fault for not getting tested or whatever, even though it's the truth is his government's incompetence is why the virus has escaped. Now, on to other Victorian news. Now, I've been keeping you updated on Victoria's various political prisoners. So being held at the Melbourne assessment prison recently has been Neil Erickson, Thomas Sewell, Nick Patterson, and Pastor Paul Forlong. Hang on, I've got a phone call here. Hello?
Hello, is this Tim's news explosion?
Yes, it is. Is this Neil Erickson?
Yes, the very same.
Yes.
I'm actually called PPE now. Post-prison Ericsson, but yes, it is Ericsson.
So I was just explaining to the audience that you're one of the four political prisoners at the Melbourne assessment prison, which seems to be our local gulag here, where all the political prisoners need to are sent.
Yes, I think they're going to make a new unit. As I said in one of my letters outside of prison, they don't know where to put all of us political dissidents. So they're going to create a new unit called Unit 51. So I'll be looking forward to it at my next stay.
Yes, because you could be going back again because, well, this prison sentence was for disturbing religious worship at Islamic prayers in Federation Square in 2019. You were deemed a high-risk offender because your words were very offensive, I believe, is why you're termed a, high-profile offender.
This is correct. Very important prisoner. They tried to move me around. They got a bit nervous about my presence, especially Sewell's presence. But I think the most interesting thing, all jokes aside, why did they put me and Sewell next to each other in cells? Because I spoke to a few people before my stay at the Melbourne Assessment Prison, and there was word that we wouldn't even be in the same prison because of risk of two kind of political offenders being in the same prison. It's risky business for a prison.
And yeah, that is it was. We were sort of joking that you and Sewell will be cellmates. We didn't think that actually put you together, but they did, and you could actually, even though you weren't supposed to, you did talk to each other.
Yeah, pretty much every night we'll talk. We'll have, I think the power went out at the Melbourne Assessment Prison for like about 4 hours one night. We just chatted for about 4 hours. It was good having a mate next to you in another cell. It really boosted the morale because it is quite depressing being in a cell 24 hours a day for 3 weeks.
You didn't miss much on the outside. I mean, we've all been subjected to home imprisonment.
Well, I did. I missed every episode of Tim's News Explosion. So
you did, because you only get the fake news channels in prison.
Oh, let me just get into that for 1 second. I don't want to keep you because it's only a quick, short News Explosion episode. But I watched mainstream news for the first time in years, and I was just gobsmacked at how openly fake it is. It's just like everything about COVID. It's like, because I watch it from like 6 a.m. till about 9 when it finishes, and it's just COVID.
Yeah.
Celebration. We've only got 0 cases today. And then I'm watching people line up for 8 hours a day. I thought I was in clown world. 8 hours a day for a vaccine that doesn't even protect you 100%. And then they get sent home because there's none for them. And then they line up again the next day for another 6 or 8 hours.
Yeah, 7-9 years. They're the absolute worst with the fear porn. I think when the latest outbreak happened, the newsrooms in 7 and 9 were probably filled with incitement gist. They couldn't believe their luck that they got to talk about COVID fear 24/7 again.
Well, they were having their own little news explosion.
Yes, they were. Now, as I mentioned, you could be going back to prison because you've got another disturbing religious worship charge to face for an encounter that you had at a gay church in Hawthorne back in May 2019.
Yes, well, first there was the Muslims, and now it's the gays. So we'll see how we go. I don't know if there's any gay gangs in prison, but I'll soon find out.
Yeah, because you had some encounters in there because you were moved to a medium security prison for the last week of your sentence.
Yeah, don't be fooled by the word medium. There's nothing medium about it. It's just that these people have usually get sent there first. A lot of the people in there have really bad crimes. It's just that they're a bit more well behaved. They're not as extreme. The ones they sent to Port Phillip for maximum security, these are dangerous people. These people can't behave in prison. So medium security, it sounds medium. It's not medium. It's pretty full on in there. But as I said, like I mean, I've told just the worst of it. But other than that, it's actually quite a chill place. I would advise everyone to go there because it's a good like detox. Go there. After 2 weeks, I stopped reaching for my phone in my pocket, which is good. I stopped the need for nicotine, and I was starting to do push-ups. I was starting to get fit. It was a great a great experience, other than, being around Muslims, but I was safe. I got out alive. So I would advise everyone go to prison at least once.
Well, when you, if you do go back, I said when because they'll probably find a way to get you and throw you in prison again for the gay church incident. When you're back in, you better watch your behind, pardon the pun.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm about to get off, but Tim, just a question. You showed a video of Julia Gillard being questioned about her partner. Is Tim gay?
You want to ask me? Well, I think the evidence speaks for itself.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you also mentioned that Tom's writing a book because he'll be in prison for probably a year or two while he awaits trial.
Well, as I said to Tom, the time he's doing now, it's going to be taken off his sentence. So it's basically, if he's found guilty on any of the charges, it will just be time served. So, like, Saul's got it in his head, like, will I either do the time now or later, depending on whether he's found guilty or not. But he's doing well, man. He's writing his book. I've never seen a guy like him who really doesn't. It's not that he doesn't care. He's just not fussed about being inside.
Yeah. He's writing about his struggles, isn't he?
Yes, it's about his struggle. So I don't know if I should reveal what he's going to call the book, but it's going to be a very good book, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it, Tim.
Well, enjoy your newfound release in this open air prison of Victoria.
Well, as you said to me today on the phone, Tim, you're complaining about being in lockdown, and I said, "Well, try being in a cell, mate."
Yeah, I don't discount that. That is worse, but yeah, on the outside, life still sucks as well.
Well, I think it sucks everywhere now in Victoria, and I think hopefully people aren't totally brainwashed and aren't all sheep, and we get a Liberal government in next election. That's what I hope. Not that I'm a big fan of the Liberals, but we're going to get Labor out.
All right, take care.
All right, see you, Tim. I'm so proud to be on News Explosion, Tim's News Explosion. Awesome stuff. Thank you.
No worries. All the best. Now, the news that broke on Sunday. Now, the Andrews government has been able to keep locking us down with state of emergency extensions. They've been secretly negotiating with the Three Stooges on the Victorian crossbench. That is Fiona Patten of the Reason Party, Samantha Ratnam of the Victorian Greens, and Andy Medic of the Animal Justice Party to have permanent pandemic laws to replace the state of emergency. Demands made by the powerful crossbenchers in return for their support include a requirement that police record the racial appearance of people they stop or fine for breaching health directions, and that the government is forced to be more transparent with the information and trigger points behind interventions such as lockdown. Disadvantaged Victorians would also be able to be exempted or pay reduced fines if found contravening restrictions, because the $1,652 fines under the state of emergency, they're going to go up on July 1st to $1,800. So they're going to go up even further here. And now these the Three Stooges here, I mean, I can't believe that they're going to fall for this, since they've basically got nothing in exchange for their support for the two previous state of emergency extensions here. So it goes down here that Andy Medic here, he says here that he wanted the new legislation to be a health response first, with legal consequences enforcement as a support structure only. Well, it hasn't been a health response. It's been a police state response. I feel we haven't got the balance right at times in the last year. Yeah, no shit there. So we'll see how that goes. The legislation is due to be released, draft in the next couple of months. And, well, they want it passed when the state of emergency expires at December of this year, and they wanted to cover all future pandemics, because even though we haven't had a major pandemic with lockdowns for 100 years, apparently there could be more pandemics in the future. Now, I spoke about before about the hypocritical Victorian politicians forcing us to wear masks outside, but not wearing them themselves. Well, the G7 nations who met in person in Cornwall, down in southeast England, for the official cameras, they did the elbow bump if they were inside with masks, but when the cameras weren't front and center, they got all up close and personal. This was the official G7 photo above. That is the Queen in the middle there, all spaced out there, but obviously when they're out mingling there, not social distance there. Now, when so if I go back to this photo here, when they're mingling at the G7, they're not wearing masks or socially distancing, but the peasant servants serving them drinks, they have to wear masks there. And Boris Johnson, when addressing the G7 leaders, he renewed the global leaders' commitment to build back better. This is what he said.
I think there is the potential to generate many, many millions of high-wage, high-skill jobs, and I think that is what the people of our countries now want us to focus on. They want us to be sure that we're beating the pandemic together and discussing how we'll never have a repeat of what we've seen, but also that we're building back better together and building back greener and building back fairer and building back more equal and how shall I, in a more gender neutral and perhaps a more feminine way. How about that, apart from anything else? So those are some of the objectives that we have before us at Carbis Bay.
So basically, Boris Johnson was saying we're going to have a new world order and unleash global communism. You could basically sum it up there. And what build back gender neutral? What the hell is that in a more feminine way? Obviously, Boris Johnson has married his new missus. I can't even remember her name, but it sounds like she's having a Meghan Markle style influence on him to spew out that garbage there. Now, the G7, it used to be the G8 with Russia, but they kicked Russia out in 2014 when they annexed Crimea. So it's now the G7. So that is the UK, US, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, and Japan. So Scott Morrison was invited as a guest or a hanger-on there. They talked about, yes, climate targets, but they also spoke about the other global nation that was not there, China. They want now, since the lab leak theory about the origins of COVID is no longer a conspiracy theory, rather the most likely source of the virus. They want a renewed investigation into the origins of COVID there. Scott Morrison, he showed himself elbow bumping with all the leaders there, but as you saw, wasn't any of the official photos. Now, before I finish for the night, the other stories that have been dominating the week, Friendly Geordies, who's an obnoxious Labour shill YouTuber. His producer was arrested 10 days ago for allegedly stalking the Deputy Premier of New South Wales, John Barilaro, was charged by the Counter-Terrorism and Fixated Persons Unit. Friendly Geordies has targeted John Barilaro, accusing him of corruption for the past year. John Barilaro seemed to have had enough recently and is now suing him. And now, well, the New South Wales Police, their unit has arrested his 21-year-old producer. I wonder if that will make the far left not support sweeping government powers, since, well, if a right-wing or conservative government gets into power, they can use those to persecute members of the leftist activist community, even though these people on the left would hope such powers are only used against far-right people like Neil, who I just spoke to before. It looks like the Belbo Sri Lankan fake refugee family with anchor babies, they will be allowed to stay in Australia. The Morrison government looks set to capitulate on that. Fake Aboriginal Bruce Pascoe. Now academics agree that he has used fake evidence for his Dark Emu book, which claims that ancient Aboriginal Australians, they basically had a ancient Rome or ancient Greece like civilization. They weren't hunter-gatherers. So it looks like the end for this fraudster. And airing right now, the ABC have decided to air their Four Corners episode hosted by Louise Milligan about Scott Morrison's wife's friend's husband who believes in QAnon. I'll watch that after this to see what it's all about. But thank you, everyone, for watching Tim's News Explosion for another week. I'll be back this time next week. And this week, it is a Wilmsfront week on, Trad Tasman Talk week off. So Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time on the Wilmsfront YouTube channel. My guest will be Evelyn Ray of Cauldron Pool. I'm very much looking forward to chatting with her. Take care, everyone. I'll see you Thursday and see you next Monday for Tim's News Explosion. Keep checking out theunshackled.net on a regular basis for our Unshackled Productions archive and articles.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.